Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Jill and today I'm going to be talking about my most disappointing books of 2020. As always, these are my opinions. If you loved these books, I am so happy for you, but don't get mad at me if I shit on your favorite book, okay? We're all friends here. Let's just jump right into it because I'm pretty sure this video is going to be long as it is because I like ranting about things that I do not like, apparently. Also, I decided to rank these, so they are going to go from like my most disappointing all the way down to like my worst book of the year. And so yeah, they are ranked in order of how much they disappointed me. So at number 9, I have an audiobook that I actually listened to the last couple of weeks, and that is Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. I picked up this book because it was totally outside of my comfort zone. It's advertised as a horror, dark academia type story, and I am such like a scaredy cat that I hate horror books. Like, I never want to read a book that is considered horror. I decided to pick this one up even though the audiobook was 20 hours long. I was like, you know what, let's just get on this train and let's see how it goes. It takes place over 2 different timelines, but it essentially follows a boarding school for girls. One is in the past where all of these girls are going to this boarding school and a couple of the girls mysteriously die under mysterious circumstances, and then the other timeline is in the present when they are making a movie about the events that happened at this creepy school. So we follow multiple groups of girls through multiple timelines, and I just thought that concept sounded cool, even though like I was really wary about the horror aspect. First little bit I thought was pretty decent, even though it was really slow. Like, I was actually kind of scared shitless, but after that, listen, I am the biggest scaredy cat and I was just bored. I was just bored. Really am someone who does not DNF books, and so I pushed through this 20-hour audiobook until I finished it, and I was just so meh. I did enjoy the queerness of this book. Like, it follows a lot of sapphic relationships because considering that you are following a school that is for girls, you know, there is a lot of lesbian, bisexual relationships that are happening, and I really did like that representation, which is why this isn't like lower on the list, I guess. Just dragged on forever and I didn't care about what happened. I didn't care about the mystery. It was just confusing and weird, and the ending was really unsatisfactory for me, and I just don't really know what the point of this was. I don't understand. It really was not for me, and I feel like I missed something or read a different book than people who enjoyed this book did. Number 8 is a book that might hurt some people's feelings, and you know, it'll all be okay, alright? And that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This book I really feel like I read at the wrong time. If you've been following my channel, I went on a nice 2-year hiatus from making booktube videos, and in that time I did not read at all, and I decided in order to get me back into reading I was going to give this one a try, which I just think was like a huge mistake because this book is very well written, it's very whimsical, but it was just so confusing to me. And I know some people like those types of books where they don't know what's going on, but I really like my books to be like centered in some kind of reality, and this was just all over the place and I could not get like a firm grasp on what this book was even about. Like, I read it, but I still can't really give you a good summary. It basically follows a circus that only appears at night, and it appears like magically in different places of the world. Circus is the playing field of this like ancient competition between these 2 magicians, and this is kind of the battleground, but they don't know that it's the battleground that they're supposedly battling this competition on, but they don't. It's weird, and I'm sure I just missed something because I know that this is such a beloved book. I also think this book is definitely more like setting driven. Like, if you really love interesting settings, you might really love this book, but like the plot, where was she? And throughout reading it, I just felt this constant feeling of like chasing wanting to like it. Like, I was like, okay, this chapter it'll get good, or like now it'll get good, or this part will be good, or okay, finally something's happening. And I kept chasing these moments that like kept letting me down over and over and over again, so it ended up just being such a disappointment. It might have been wrong place, wrong time, but I don't know. I feel like if I read it now, I still wouldn't really enjoy it. Yeah. Alright, at number 7, we have another really, not really beloved, but I feel like a lot of people that I trust really love this book, so I'm so sorry. But that is The Last Magician by Lisa Maxwell. I think this book perfectly embodies how YA in general, but specifically YA fantasy, is really hit or miss for me nowadays. I used to like only read YA fantasy, but now that I kind of took my 2-year break, I've kind of been exploring different genres, and YA fantasy is one that can be really fantastic or like completely miss the mark for me, and this completely missed the mark for me. To be honest with you, I had forgotten everything that happened in this book before I was preparing for this video. Like, I had no idea what it was about. Number one, this book is super forgettable, but I looked up the Goodreads summary and it basically follows this girl named S Jae, and she can time travel, and she ends up traveling back to 1902 to steal this book in order to prevent the entrapment of magicians in the future. So the book takes place mostly in 1902, but it does flash forward to the present day as well. And I just did not care about this book. This is actually kind of like a pretty big book. I don't know if it looks like that on camera, but I think it's like over 500 pages. It's exactly like 500 pages, and I just didn't have a good time at all. Like, again, maybe it was wrong place, wrong time. Maybe I just was not in the mood for YA fantasy when I read this book, but I just could not bring myself to care about these characters. Like, I just felt nothing in my soul for this book. Like, again, I would love to give you specifics about why I did not like this book, but it was just so forgettable that I just don't even want to go back and like try to remember what I did not specifically like about it. I just found it really underwhelming. Didn't have fun with it while I was reading it, unfortunately. I know some people really love this series. It was just, it's not for me. It was a pretty big miss. Next, for number 6 and 5, I have 2 adult romance books by the same authors, and at number 6 I decided to put My Favorite Half Night Stand by Christina Lauren. This book just really gave me the sense of meh after finishing it. I had really good luck with Christina Lauren when I started reading their books, but after this book, it just really went downhill from there, and I really feel like they are not for me anymore. The book basically follows this girl named Millie, and she has 4 guy friends, and they are all professors at this university, and they're all single, and they have to go to this like company or university dinner thing, and they have to have dates, and so they decide to make dating profiles. Millie and one of the guys in the group, they end up matching on this dating site, but Millie knows that they matched, but the guy doesn't know, and then at the same time, Millie and the same guy actually had like these sexy steamy times when they were both drunk, and so now you kind of have them in real life falling for each other, and also the guy falling for Millie but as the person on the dating site. It basically boiled down to I didn't care about the characters, I didn't care about the plot. I especially really disliked the side characters. Like the guy friends who are supposed to be Millie's like best friend were like way too bro-y, like let's drink beer in the morning type guys, and I just didn't like them at all. I found them pretty insufferable. Especially I think Millie herself just needed to go to therapy before she got into a relationship, and I felt so bad for this guy. The guy was not perfect either, but Millie specifically got really on my nerves. Like, it wasn't necessarily her fault. I just feel like she shouldn't have like entered into this relationship without first figuring herself out a little bit. For a romance book, I feel like you really have to like the 2 main leads in order to really like a romance novel, and for me, I didn't like really any of the leads, so that's why it was a flop for me. In that same vein, we have number 5, which is the Unhoneymooners by Christina Lauren. This is another one that's very popular, and so some hearts might have broken just now, but I assure you, we're all gonna be okay. I know that this book is some people's favorite romance novel of all time, favorite Christina Lauren book, and I, for the life of me, don't know why. I mean, I can kind of see why. It's like this fake dating type hate to love romance, which I know people really enjoy, but I have found that I personally am not the biggest fan of hate to love romance. This follows 2 characters, the girl named Olive and the guy named Ethan, and they're siblings, so Olive's sister and Ethan's brother are getting married, but then something horrible happens at the wedding that makes it to where Olive's sister and Ethan's brother cannot go on their honeymoon, and so Olive and Ethan end up going on their honeymoon for them. Them hating each other, I also just didn't believe, and I thought it was pretty dumb, but nevertheless they hate each other, and they go to this like this tropical island getaway, and they have to like be around each other and pretend they're husband and wife. I thought the first half was okay, like it wasn't like absolutely amazing. I didn't really feel the chemistry between Olive and Ethan. The explanation for why they hate each other I just think was just weird and just kind of this for the sake of having it be hate to love. But what really irked me about this book was the ending twist, like this 3rd act twist that happened, which I just could not get behind the romance after that. Like, I thought Olive was done so dirty by everyone in her life. All these people that she's supposed to trust just did her so dirty, and it just made me so mad. I ranted to my boyfriend about it. I was like, I cannot believe these people did this to her. The only feeling I had about this book was anger, and this is definitely my least favorite Christina Lauren book to date. I know lots of people really love this book, so maybe it's just me who felt these things. I just did not enjoy the ending, and the rest of the story was very average, so that's why it's number 5 on this list. Next up at number 4, I have a graphic novel, and that is Laura Dean Keeps Breaking Up With Me by Mariko Tamaki, I think is the author's name. And I picked this graphic novel up just on a whim. It was available at my library, and I was like, hey, that sounds good. I'm kind of in a graphic novel mood, even though I don't normally read graphic novels very often. But this one was just, in my opinion, like I feel like it could have done way more than it did. This book basically follows a girl named Freddie, I think, and she is in a really abusive abusive relationship where her girlfriend Laura Dean keeps breaking up with her and keeps cheating on her, but Freddie can't seem to like say no to her and keeps coming back to her. And the thing that really irked me the most about this book is that it really equated polyamory, which is like having multiple sexual or romantic relationships, with cheating. Like it was kind of like those were equated in a way, which they are not the same. Polyamory includes consent and cheating does not include consent, and so that just really bothered me. Also, I just really couldn't connect to the characters. That could be just because that I am not really a graphic novel person, but I have loved graphic novels in the past. This book also is very triggering for a lot of reasons, specifically for, again, abortion specifically, and also toxic relationships are the big two that I could think of. The only thing that really got me to feel something was Doodle's storyline, which I did think was really heartbreaking, but I still feel like that could have even been explored in greater depth. This really was a disappointment for me, and again, it really irked me in some of the aspects. It just was icky for me and I did not really enjoy reading it. We are down to the final three. Oh, you guys already know. Let's buckle up and get ready to rant. At number 3, I have Only Mostly Devastated by Sophie Gonzales. Oh boy, guys, this book just grinded my gears. Really, it did. This book is a male-male spin on Grease, and so I thought, hey, that sounds super cool. It follows this guy named Ollie and this guy named Will who had this whirlwind romance in the summer, but then they have to break up because Ollie doesn't live where Will lives, but Ollie ends up having to move where Will lives, and they end up going to the same high school together. And then Ollie's like, oh my god, my boyfriend is here, but Will is actually not out yet, so that creates some conflict. And this mostly just boils down to me not being able to enjoy a romance in which Ollie, who is the out character, bullies Will into trying to come out of the closet when he's not ready. Will and Ollie's school is in a very small town, very conservative. You know, Will is very afraid that his parents would not accept him if he came out as to having a boyfriend. And Ollie will not let this go, and he makes Will feel like shit at every single twist and turn about being in the closet. And I just couldn't do it. I'm sorry. It bothered me. I have to put an asterisk here and say that I myself am not a gay male, and so I looked up reviews to see if I was the only one that was feeling this, and I did see Own Voices reviews that actually really loved this book and was not bothered by this aspect, but I also did see Own Voices reviewers that were bothered by this aspect. Will also treated Ollie like shit most of the time, and I know that the author was going for like this Grease retelling where they kind of do treat each other like shit, but I just could not get behind it. I feel like the two of them just should have sat down and discussed what they were and what they wanted out of this relationship or friendship or whatever. Like, they just need to sit down and talk about it, because if they did that, I feel like all these problems would have been solved. But instead, they didn't talk about it, so you have each character like making all these mistakes and being angry all the time and manipulating the other and being shit to the other person. Really no reason, just because there's like this miscommunication going on. So I just could not get behind it. Another thing is it was just kind of weird because Ollie and Will's relationship started off the page. Like, it happened before the actual book started, and so we kind of have to go in assuming that Will and Ollie like each other, but we never really get to see any examples of that. So again, that it was just really hard to connect. The point for this book is that it really was hilarious. I enjoyed like the pop culture references in it, and it made me laugh at times, but other than that, it just really bothered me, the romance. And again, this is kind of like a YA contemporary that features the romance, and if I do not support the romance, it's very hard for me to enjoy the book. Alright, we down to number 2 on the list, and that is How to Hack a Heartbreak by Kristin Rockaway. This is not the feminist anthem that this author thinks it is. This book drove me up a wall. This book, I swear to God. Like, I feel like I actually lost brain cells while listening to this book on audio. So this follows a girl named Mel, and she works in the tech industry, and she has to deal with a lot of sexism from her coworkers, which is true. Like, the tech industry historically has been very male-centric and has been very sexist towards women. You know, Mel is constantly put down by her coworkers, and it's like she has to fix all the computers of these like jackasses basically, and she hates her job. But she ends up coding and designing this app called Jerk Alert, where people can go on and basically review like the guys that they went on dates with, and tell other women, you know, don't date this guy, he stood me up, or don't date this guy, he cheated on me. This book is supposed to be an adult romance. Every single guy in this book, every single man, is absolute garbage, abusive, horrible, like looks down on Mel, horrible. Every single guy, every single one. Every single one! Even the love interest, which is what bothered me the most. Like, Mel hated men so much, but she was so obsessed with trying to get a boyfriend. So it was just like, girl, like, if you hate men this much, why are you trying so hard and why are you so sad when you don't have a boyfriend, right? And so she gets this guy and she just thinks the worst of him and automatically thinks that he is a piece of shit as well, even though he's not. But we have to deal with being in the head of this woman. And I just honestly feel like there are better ways to empower women than to make every single guy like an actual garbage can. Romance ends up working out at the end, but not before the main character like treats the other guy like shit even though he didn't really do anything, and she just assumes that he's a piece of shit because all men are trash. Clearly. It was just too soapboxy for me. Like, it felt like the author had a personal vendetta against men and she had to write that down in a book, and it was just not enjoyable to read. I think the concept is a good one. I feel like it could have been more subtle. To read it as a romance was just not an enjoyable experience. Yeah, there's my rant on this one, and clearly this has to be on the list because I just hated every moment of it, really. Yes, here we go with my least favorite book that I read this year. And oh boy, do I feel bad because one of my really good friends loved this book and convinced me to buy it. This is like the worst reading experience of my life. And that book, ladies and gentlemen, is Wintersong by S Jae Jones. This book has nothing going for it. I'm so sorry. The premise is the only thing that's remotely interesting. It basically is a retelling of the Goblin Market poem. If you are an English major in college, you've probably read that poem multiple times. And it also has a lot to do with music. And this girl named Liesel ends up having to go to like the underworld and she meets this Goblin King. And it sounds like this dark, rich, enthralling, sexy YA fantasy. It was creepy in a bad way. This book made me really heated for many different ways, and I want to try to keep my composure because I could go on all day about this book. The main issue that I had with it was its portrayal of sex. Our main character, Liesel, is quite something. He is very whiny and annoying, first off, but she considers sex to be the end-all be-all of herself. She considers herself ugly and worthless because the Goblin King refuses to have sex with her. But at the same time, she slut-shames her sister for like wearing revealing clothing, but at the same time, she considers sex to be like everything, so it was like a bit odd. There are a couple scenes in this book where Liesel tries to have sex with the Goblin King and he has his reasons for saying no to her, and she ends up basically raping him or almost raping him in that one scene, which I just really bothered me and was not okay. And when the Goblin King refuses to have sex with her, I can't remember whether that was the same time or a different time, she actually throws a temper tantrum. Like, I am not exaggerating. She gets so upset that he doesn't want to have sex with her. She goes back to her room, rips her clothes apart, totally rips apart her room and like destroys it, all of her furniture, and just goes crazy because this guy said that he wouldn't have sex with her, and she's like, well, I guess I'm worthless now. Hello? And also, you know, eventually, when the Goblin King and her have the sexy times, she's considered a new woman now. She is this beautiful, wanted, a wonderful woman because this guy had sex with her. Like, she is a changed person because of the sex. And I just think that that is not a good message. You don't need to have sex to consider yourself of worth or to be beautiful. If it wasn't enough, I also didn't care at the same time about these characters. Like, the family dynamics were also super abusive and weird, and so I didn't really understand the connection between Liesel and her older sister. I really almost put it down because it was driving me crazy, but I wanted to finish it so that I could have my full thoughts to rant about it. Like, what is the point of this book? Also, this book is very like whimsical, and again, I really personally like my magic systems to make sense and have rules to them as opposed to us trying to figure out the rules as we go along. And so it just felt really like all up in the air, and I was trying constantly to try to figure out what this book was trying to do, what this book was about, and I just could not grasp it. And like, the world is not well explained at all. You know, I've seen rave reviews of this book, so you know, if you like it, more power to you. I just could not get past certain aspects. For me personally, don't read this book, please. It is not good, not worth it. Not worth the pain. It really is not worth the pain, I promise you. Whew, I hope I didn't lose subscribers there by ranting about some of your guys' favorite book. I hope you guys enjoyed. Give a like if you did, subscribe if you want to see more from me, and I will see you later in another video very soon. Bye!